Hey guys, welcome to Biddy's Math Binder. Before we get started, we always want to make sure that we have paper and pencil. If we do not have those two things, how are we supposed to learn math? So make sure that you're going to take that paper and pencil out now before we get started. Alright, so today we are going to work on simplifying exponents. And before we work on the simplifying, let's make sure that we remember all of our properties. So the first rule is the product rule. That means that anytime you multiply things of the same base, if they have exponents, you're going to actually add those exponents. Okay, so for an example, if I have x to the 5th times x to the 3rd, that's going to give me x to the 8th because I added 5 plus 3. The next property is whenever you are dividing things with exponents. Anytime you divide, you are going to subtract those exponents. So if I do another example here, x to the 5th over x to the 3rd, that's going to give me x squared because, of course, 5 minus 3 is 2. Next, we're going to look at the power rule. That means when I raise a power to another power, I'm going to always multiply those two numbers. So in this example, if I have x to the 5th also raised to the 3rd, that's going to give me x to the 15th because 5 times 3 is 15. And power of a product. So as you see here in this example, that a is around both the x and the y. So that means that x and that y are both going to be raised to the a power. So in an example, if I have x, y both to the 3rd, that means that I have x to the 3rd and y to the 3rd. The next property is going to be whenever you have negative exponents. If it's already on the numerator, okay, and you have that negative exponent. So we don't normally use negative exponents, okay? So when you're simplifying and you have a negative exponent in your answer, that's going to be incorrect. That's going to tell you that you need to keep going. If you see a negative exponent, you can actually bring it down to the denominator and it will become positive. So if I show you this example, x to the negative 3rd, that's really 1 over x to the positive 3 power, okay? Now, if you have a negative exponent on the denominator, then it needs to be moved to the numerator in order to become positive. So again, if I have 1 over x to the negative 3, I will actually just have x to the 3rd. It will be positive because I moved that negative exponent up to the numerator. Now, anytime you see a 0 as the power, anytime, your answer will always be 1. So if I have 5 to the 0 power, immediately I know my answer is 1. Okay, pretty simple, pretty quick, easy there. And if I have a 1 on the exponent, well, then my answer is just whatever that base was. So if I have 5 to the first power, then my answer is just going to be 5. Now, let's put all of these properties together to actually try and answer some questions. So let's look at this first one. Immediately, I see that 0 is on the whole thing. And we learned earlier that anything to the 0 power is 1. Done. Easy. Next. All right, so I see that negative 2 is both on the 4 and on the x. So I'm going to go ahead and write that out. Now, I'm not allowed to have any negative exponents. They're both on the top right now. Technically, it's all over 1, right? So if I both have the 4 to the negative 2nd and x to the negative 2nd on top, they need to be brought down to the bottom. Now that 2 is able to become positive. Well, I keep looking and I go, oh, okay, I know that 4 squared is actually 16. And once I'm here at this step, I have to check, is there anything else that I can do? And I don't see anything else from my properties that need to be changed. So I can go ahead and box in my answer and move on to the next. Now see, the difference between this question and the previous one is that negative 2 is only on the x. It is not around the 4. So that 4 can stay just where it is. but that x squared needs to be brought down to the bottom so that it's no longer negative. At this point, I look and I don't see anything else wrong with it. That's my answer. Moving on. Okay, that 0 is only on the x, and we know that x to the 0, anything actually to the 0 power is 1. So I have 4 times 1. And of course, we know 4 times 1 is 4. That's all I can do. Moving on. All right, so that -2 is on both the 2 and the x. So I'm going to put that -2 on both pieces. Now at this point, I have negative exponents. I don't like that. Let me go ahead and move those down. And I do know that 2 squared is actually 4, so go ahead and simplify that number out. And there is nothing else that needs to be changed. And we're done. Okay, so I do have a quotient here. I see that that -2 is on both the x and the 2. So I'll go ahead and show that. Now, I have negatives on both top and bottom. So if I want that x squared, if I want that 2 to become a positive 2, I need to bring it down to the bottom. However, I have a 2 to the -2, and I want that to be positive as well. So if it's on the denominator, it needs to be brought up to the top. So let's go ahead and switch both of those. Now I have positive exponents. 2 squared is 4 over x squared. And that's about as far as I can go. We are done. If you hear that little noise over there, that's my dog scratching. Sorry. All right. Next. Okay, let's deal with this piece one at a time. First, I see that that 2 is on everything in the numerator. So let me go ahead and show that it goes to every piece on the numerator, like so. All right, let's simplify a little bit here. I know that -3 squared is 9. And I also know that that y to the -1 can be brought up to become a positive 1. And that's what I have shown right there. Now, when we are multiplying things with exponents, we can add them. 2 plus 1 is 3. And that's as far as we can go. All right, everything on here on this next one has negative exponents. So because everything has negative exponents, we can go ahead and switch everything's place so that x will move up and the 3 and the y will move down. Now we have positive exponents, which is what we like. Let's simplify some more. I know that that 3 squared is actually 9. And that's as far as we can go. Next. All right, so this one's a little tricky, okay? I'm going to show you my first step by giving that 2 to everything. Now, if you notice, whoops. All right, let's stop here for a second. If you notice, this negative is not in the parentheses with the 3. However, on 2 problems previously, this negative is in there with the 3. Let's talk about that. The negative was included here. So that means -3 got squared, which is what happened. Here, the negative is not included, so I put that on the outside. I don't deal with it right now. Just the 3 is squared, so just the 3 is squared, okay? Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, all right, well, -3 squared is 9. Why do I have a negative here? Well, because 3 squared is 9, and that negative was on the outside, it needs to get brought down, okay? So hopefully that clears that up for you. And when I look, I do see y's on both top and bottom. I can't have multiple letters like that. We learned the quotient rule tells us to subtract. So 2 minus 5 is what I'm going to do next to get -3. Well, we cannot have a -3, so we're going to go ahead and move that to the bottom so that it becomes a +3. Now, a lot of mistakes here. Kids always want to say, hey, that 9 is negative. We need to move it to the bottom. No, 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 no. All right? Since when has negative 9 and 1/9 been the same? Never. So let's not start now, okay? You cannot have negative exponents. You can, however, have negative numbers. So that is good to go. We are done. Next, that 2 goes on both pieces. So let's go ahead and write that out. I do know I can simplify 2 squared and make it 4. And that's as far as I needed to go. Boom. Anything to the 0 power is 1. I like that one. All right. I see that 2 needs to go on everything in here. And this negative 2 needs to go on everything in here. All right. Now, I'm going to make that 2 go on the first set of parentheses. And I'm actually just going to go ahead and bring that second parentheses down to the bottom because it was negative. And anytime you have a negative on top, you can go ahead and bring it to the bottom. So that's why I did that. Now, as you see in this next step, the y squared cancels with the y squared on bottom. And the z squared on top cancels with the z squared on bottom. That's why I'm just left with the 2 squared over the x squared. Now I have 4 on top, x squared on bottom. Boom, I'm done. All right, so I'll tell you what, the parentheses, that first set of parentheses, those parentheses really are unneeded, okay? That's just 3 times x squared times y squared. That's not really a big deal. And then I have this negative 1. All right. You can distribute this negative 1 throughout and give it to everything right away. Or you can go ahead and move it down to the bottom and make it positive. The order in which you do your exponent rules truly does not matter. As long as you end up with the same answer as me in the end, I don't really care what arrangement or what order you choose to do them in. As long as you use the correct rule and do them all and simplify it down to the last piece, then we're good to go. I don't really care what order you choose. So that 3x squared y squared can just be written like that. And I'm going to go ahead and choose to bring that negative 1 down. And there we go. Well, if you look, I have everything on top matching everything on bottom. Well, something divided by itself is always just 1. So there we have it. Anything to the 0 power is, what is it? 1. Very good. Okay, next. That 2 needs to go to everything in the numerator. So let's go ahead and put that 2 on everything in the numerator. Now let's stop and talk about how I got these numbers. All right? This 2 squared. Cool. Right here, I'm raising a power to another power. What did we say the rule was when we raise a power to another power? To multiply. That's why I have that negative 2. And then again, a 2 raised to the second power, we multiply, we got 4. Now let's keep it going. I do see that I have x's on top and bottom. And when we have that, we can actually subtract. So negative 2 minus 4 is negative 6. And of course, I went ahead and just said 2 squared is 4. Now, I don't like that negative 6. It needs to be brought down to the bottom. The 4 and the z to the 4th are both positive. There's nothing wrong with that. Bring that x6 to the bottom, and we are done. Next. Okay, the 0 is only on the second piece. So I have that 4 times 1, because anything to the 0 power is 1. And the answer is 4. Okay, so let's look at this next one. When I look here, the first thing I want to deal with is that exponent of 4 on the second set of parentheses. So right now, I'm just going to rewrite everything in the first piece. I'm not going to touch it yet, and I'm going to give that 4 to everything in the second set. So let's take a look at what that looks like real quick. All right. The 4 is given away to everything. I did not touch that that first parenthesis yet. All right. Next. And again, you may choose to do a different order than me. That does not matter as long as you get the right answer in the end. So, what I saw here, let me get my little highlighter out, is there's an a to the 4th on bottom and on top. They cancel out. There's a b to the 4th on bottom and a b to the 4th on top. They cancel out. All right, so I ignored those, and let's just go ahead and ignore those. Okay, now, I should have left that up. All right, there you go. Now I can just take the top piece and multiply together. All right, 3 to the 4th, x to the 4th, and a negative y. That's exactly what I have here. I just rearranged the order, okay? That's like technically a negative 1 times y. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. And then I have the x to the 4th and the y, because I like to keep it in alphabetical order. And then I have the y to the 4th on bottom, which is where I get that from, okay? Next, I see two y's. I see a y on top and a y to the 4th on bottom. 1 minus 4 is going to simplify that for me to get negative 3. I cannot have a negative exponent. Let's go ahead and bring that negative exponent down to the bottom. And again, I need to simplify 3 to the 4th completely, which is 81. If you notice, it was 3 to the 4th, which was 81. That negative was separate on the outside. It was not in a parentheses along with that 4. So I keep the negative. That is my final answer. All right. So now that you've seen me do a bunch of examples, I'm going to give you a challenging example, and I want to see how well you can do. I'm going to show you the problem, and then just pause this video, try it yourself, and then hit play to watch me do it. All right? So here's the problem, and just hit pause until you are ready to view it on your own. All right, so how are we going to go about this problem? The first thing that I want to do is I'm actually just going to ignore that first set of parentheses right now and only focus on the second piece. And I see that there's a negative 2 that I need to give to everything inside those parentheses. So real quick, I'm just going to write the first one down and give that negative 2 to every piece inside that second set. Remember, when you raise a power to a power, you multiply, and that's exactly what I did here. Next, I see that all of the second set of parentheses, they are all negative. So I can flip that over and make them all positive. So again, I'm going to keep that first piece the same. I'm not touching it yet. And I'm going to flip that second piece upside down. Okay. Now, I do know that 2 squared is actually 4. And I know that 4 squared is actually 16. Okay. So just keep that in mind, right? Now, I have 2 fractions that I'm multiplying. So just because this looks complicated and has a bunch of letters and exponents and numbers and blah, 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 it's just as if you were in elementary school and you were going to multiply 2 fractions. Anytime you multiply things with fractions, you multiply the top with the top and the bottom with the bottom. So that's just what I'm going to do. Okay, so on top, I have 5 times 4, which is 20, that m squared, and then the n to the 3rd and n to the 4th, which gives me 7. And then on the bottom, I've got that 16, and then m7 and m2, that gives me n to the 9th, because I'm going to add, because of course we're multiplying, and the rule for multiplying is to add. And then I have n to the 1st, n to the 10th, which gives me that n to 11th, like so. And now I just have to reduce that. Okay, so let me show you what I got here, and then I'll explain. So 20 divided by 16, that reduces to 5 over 4. And then m squared and over m to the 9th, when you divide, you subtract. That's negative 7. And then I've got 7 minus 11, which is negative 4. Can't have negative exponents. Those will need to be brought down. And I look and I don't see anything else wrong with that. So that is my final answer. Okay? Very good. Hopefully you, once you play and checked your answer, you match me. All right, guys. Just make sure to follow me on YouTube, subscribe, Biddy's Math Binder for all of my videos. See you next time.